Now I'm going to give all the speakers 2.5 minutes maximum, but less if they want, just to say anything they like as a result of the meeting and what they've been doing going round and maybe what they're going to be doing in the run-up to the election. Whatever they want to say, they've got 2.5 minutes each. And we're going in the same order as before. So Sandy first.
Thank you. I was interested in a lot of the discussions. The kind of issue of train franchises came up quite a bit, and I think that is certainly an area that does sit in government agendas to be influencing things like carriage designs and the strategy that bidders have for accommodating cyclists, because I think that's an agenda that's been looked at in the past, and certainly there's an opportunity to improve on that. And I think the approach with Transport Scotland, I think, came up in a number of discussions that I was in, and being clear about, really, does it have an integrated approach to transport issues, or is it just a trunk roads, agency of the government? And I think it will be important to work with those types of agencies and in the political debate to ensure that there are more integrated solutions being funded and for the transport issues that face our nation. So I found those 2 points to be really quite interesting. And the final point I think that is important to say is that the cause of having good cycling networks and so forth can be very much echoed and channeled through good municipal management and championship, frankly, from a lot of places. And I think that's what I would be seeking also to do as any elected representative, certainly in the area of Edinburgh, to be working with the council to make sure that at a local level there is good championship of cycling initiatives and that they come across as very integrated. Thank you.
Just before Jim, thanks very much for being so quick. If I ring the bell, it means 15 seconds this time.
Right, okay. I really enjoyed all of the discussions we had in each of the groups. The common themes that Sandy discussed also came up in my groups. So yes, absolutely, the ScotRail franchise and accommodating cyclists on board the new trains that are coming on stream. More needs to be done there. I've already, through the Infrastructure and Capital Investment Committee, made the head of the ScotRail Alliance aware of that issue, and I think you as cycling champions need to apply pressure on ScotRail to ensure that they take further action. The MSPs in the Parliament will certainly do the same. Transport Scotland, I know the point that was made by Sandy and by others in discussion about Transport Scotland not always backing the right projects. I have some sympathy with that. All that I would say in their defence is that they do have a record of delivering projects within budget and on time. I just want to see many more rail and active travel and cycling projects within that. The benefits of cycling came up time and time again. The health benefits, the economic benefits from the spin-offs from investment in cycling infrastructure, and I think we're all aware of that. Nobody needs to be convinced of that, but I think we need to continue to ensure that that remains on the policy and political agenda. In the next Parliament, I want to see consideration of the needs of cyclists at an early stage when councils and transport agencies are devising transport management policies and transport planning. I want to see greater awareness of the benefits of cycling and for that to be disseminated across the whole of society. And I want to see the leadership that has been provided by the City of Edinburgh Council in committing 7% of its budget to active travel to be one that is matched by the government. That's a challenge that I've laid down to the Scottish Government, and it's a challenge that I'll continue to lay down to the Scottish Government, whoever is in government after the next election. But underpinning all of that, of course, is the need for investment in cycling infrastructure. And I always talk about cycling investment. I never talk about cycling funding, because pound for pound, the investment in cycling will pay huge dividends and huge benefits across society. So that's my pledge to you, and I'll continue to work on these issues as an MSP if I'm fortunate enough to be re-elected, and always working collaboratively with others in other parties.
I'd like to thank all 5 groups for interesting, lively discussion, much thought-provoking question and answer sessions there. I think what I've taken from this is that there is a real commitment and a desire for change, and we'll keep on working together. In 2012, I led the first debate in Parliament on cycling. Now, Parliament began here in 1999 for the second time. So this isn't really a Parliament that's quite switched on to this issue. So we still have work to do. I also reinstated the cross-party group on cycling, and I have been fortunate enough to have colleagues with the passion of Jim and Sarah. But if you want to vote for a party that gets this, not just 1 or 2 people within that party, but a party that has a commitment to this issue, then you have to vote Green. It is our party policy that 10% of the transport budget should be spent on walking and cycling. You do not have to convince us, we get it. I think we need to see mutual respect and tolerance on our roads, and one way that we could deliver that, and this wouldn't cost a terrible amount, is by the introduction of presumed liability in civil law. That would transform our roads. Absolutely. The most vulnerable on our roads would be protected, whether they were the cyclist, whether they would be the pedestrian. I'd like to see on-road cycle training for every person going through school. That should be regarded as being as important a life skill as learning to swim. You know, let's make sure that's part of the curriculum for excellence. Now, recently in my work in Parliament, I had the privilege to meet with Professor David Newby at the Royal Infirmary, and his research taking place in this city on air pollution is truly groundbreaking. He told us that you're highly likely in the hours before you have a stroke or some major heart attack, to have been sitting in heavy traffic. Such is the impact that air pollution is having on our bodies. And he said it can do things like make fatty acids just sort of fall apart and fall into your bloodstream. These chemicals are having a really damaging effect on each and every one of us. So this is a hugely important agenda. And I think, transport investment choices that are being made by this government, they're more akin to the sort of thing we could have been doing in the 80s when we didn't have all the information that we have nowadays. So I do believe that walking and cycling are the solutions to so many of the challenges we face here and now, and I will continue to work for investment in this issue. Thanks all very much.
Well, thank you very much for this evening, and I've really enjoyed the discussions that we've had, and had a lot of thought-provoking chats as well. So initially, I think a lot of my speech to begin with talked about attitudes towards cycling, and how I'd like to see that going into schools at an early age and encouraging cycling is important. But actually, throughout the discussions, that's all well and good, but that can't go without having the proper infrastructure, and that's something that was really drilled home to me in all my sessions that I had, that actually making sure the infrastructure is there, because there's no point in creating lots of enthusiastic people to want to go out and cycle if actually as soon as they get out there, there is a car in their cycle lane, or there is no cycle lane in many cases. So ensuring that we have the proper infrastructure is absolutely key, and I'm pleased to say that the Scottish Liberal Democrats will ensure that there is active travel infrastructure at the heart of its planning and its laws and its guidance and processes to ensure that all cyclists and pedestrians' needs are built into new developments. So that's great for new developments, but also there's a lot of work to do with the existing developments that are out there as well. So there's a lot of that I've taken home. No one decided to bring up cycling feminism this time, but maybe we'll have a chat about that next time. But again, like the Greens, the Scottish Liberal Democrats also want to increase the funding for active travel for pedestrians and cyclists up to 10% across the life cycle of the Parliament as well. So I do hope that you can consider giving the Scottish Liberal Democrats your vote and to support active travel. Thank you.
Well, I think we've had a fantastic debate tonight and a lot of tough questions. For my money, we've got to make sure that local authorities have the resources to do the work we want, that they're able to work together, and that we have the national leadership that's going to bring it about. So part of this is about other modes of transport being improved. And that's why we've said we want a national smart card that would bring together bus and rail travel, make it seamless. As we've had in London for years, you have a smart card. It makes it more attractive for people who, instead of driving into the city centre of Edinburgh, would much more naturally get a bus, or they would get a train, or we could encourage them to do more park and ride. Some of this is about infrastructure, some of it is about making the alternatives to driving much more attractive, and cycling has got to be part of that picture. So that's why the long-term investment that Edinburgh has been putting in is crucial. More 20-mile-an-hour zones make it safer for cyclists, more dedicated cycling routes. I also think we need to be looking at low-emission zones. We held an air quality event that I initiated before Christmas, and we've got 3 areas in Edinburgh that routinely fail, so we need to be having low-emission vehicles. So that's why I'd regulate buses, so that we get all of our buses are low emission, and that we encourage a difference in logistics. Cargo bikes need to be the end route for some of our routes. So we need to be thinking radically differently. The other thing I would say as a Labour representative is we need a practical alternative to austerity. Both the Scottish Government and our local authorities are under huge pressure at the moment. So that's why we've got our penny and income tax for people on 20,000 and above. That's why we wouldn't abolish APD. That money should be used for investing in vital public services and not seeing more flights coming into Scotland. We'd also not lift the George Osborne tax rate for people who are paying the 40p tax rate. He's going to mean that you have to earn less money before you would earn more money before that kicked in. We would keep that tax rate as it is, and if you're in the privileged position of earning more than £150,000 a year, we'd ask you to pay 50p income tax. That would enable us to put money back into public services, and we'd want transport, and in particular we'd want cycling and active travel to be key beneficiaries. Continue to lobby us. Ask the question, what kind of Scotland do we want to have after the first 25 years of our new Parliament? This is our 5th session. This is a chance to really make a difference, and make sure you keep lobbying us all the way up to the elections. Thank you very much.
Before Dave speaks, I just want to thank him very much for chairing tonight's event and doing such an excellent job. Thanks, Dave.
Well, thank you very much, Martin, and thanks to everybody for coming. It's been a really good evening, I think.